This is the Y'all Show, talk with a Southern accent. Good to have you back on here. It is time on the show that's all about the South, a production of y'all.com, the ultimate guide to the South. It's time here on our friendly show that covers everything Dixie to bring on our Toccopola Storyteller, Jerry Short. He's coming on right now to talk about the good old days and the days of right now, and maybe even a little future Southern storytelling coming from Jerry Short. Jerry, how you doing? Looking good there.
I'm doing pretty good. I got a haircut. Did you notice?
I did notice
That's
that
good.
you got one the other day.
Yeah.
I'm in need of one.
My daughter cut it, and she's not a hairstylist, but she didn't do too bad of a job.
We had a lovely Southern belle on our show the other day, Jenna Sims. She's an actress. You might know her from the Sharknado movies and or the Attack of the 50-foot tall cheerleader. But she cut her boyfriend's hair. Her boyfriend is Brooks Koepka of the PGA Tour, a winner of 4 major tournaments on the PGA Tour. And let's just say she didn't do too well with her haircut. So, Jerry,
doggone,
hopefully your daughter did a lot better
she
job.
did a really good. I've got a lot of comments about it. Here you go. See, I'll just see if I can kind of rob it back and fix it like this. And it's not bad. So anyway, it looked pretty good.
I like that. Jerry, let's talk about you and the tough guy mentality that you appear to have that I'm not so sure you're all that tough.
No, I am. I'm pretty weak. I'm just, but once upon a time, it was a different story. but let's see. You want to talk about something like that? I tell you what. I've tried to keep things kind of up a little bit and kind of lighthearted, and I wasn't going to really talk about some tough things. I've got boo-koodles of them. So I'll tell you a story, and I'm going to have to kind of lead up to it so you'll understand it. So if anybody in there needs to go to the refrigerator right quick.
Jerry, we got all day.
You got all day.
We want to hear these stories about tough guy Jerry.
We got to build up to this one. So the company I worked for, we had a contractor, and he was
like someone to take out people's lives. Contractor, is that what you're talking about?
That may have been me. I don't know, but no, this contractor was a contractor that planted trees and injected.
The other kind of contractor.
Yeah, and then dead. And he had crews working for him. So every year, the district that I was in at that time with this major timber company, we would plant at least 2,000 to 3,000 acres of land. And you'd throw in, it's a lot of pine trees. And about 622 trees per acre on a 7x9 spacing. So, you can figure pretty quick how many pine trees you'd need on 3,000 acres. So what I would monitor them, and I would go out and check to make sure their spacing was right. And so, on Friday afternoon, I would go get his bill, and I would sign off on the invoice and check and make sure that was done. And he ran also at a county line where there was 3 bars. One county was wet, the other county was dry. It was an old rebel club at that intersection. Well, it wasn't. It was on the main highway. It was one. The rebel club was on one side. On the other side, there was a red barn, and I can't think of the third one, but there was 3 bars there. I believe he ran the red barn. But I'd go there, and they'd always be gambling, and that was before casinos.
And this was not officially legal, correct?
No, it was all illegal. It was before official. But I had to, doing my business with the company I worked for, I'd go do that, and he would be tied up in a dice game or whatever they do. I don't gamble, I don't drink, I'm a sissy. You're right, I'm not very tough. But I'd go, and I'd have to wait on them to finish whatever they were doing. And sometime he'd tell me, go out to the back to the trailer, and he had a few ladies of the night. I don't know if it was of the night, day, or what, that worked for him. But sometime it'd be washing their hair in the lavatory in the kitchen with Tide detergent or whatever. So we'd do our business. So that's how I got to know him. And he would always win. So he got me hooked up one time. I had to work all the time. I'd work weekends, and then I'd work for the company But I had kids in private schools, and my wife didn't work, so I pretty much worked any kind of job I could. I think we counted jobs, and I left off a lot because I'd work a lot of these other jobs, shade tree type jobs. But he got a man over in the Delta that had a lot of land, a rich guy, a gambler too, to let me cruise his timber for him, and that's to evaluate it and appraise it, and it takes a long time to do it right. I think I did a 10% cruise on it, and cruise being the terminology for evaluating and running your azimuth and your lines and taking your plots. So anyway, I finished, and I told him, I said, I'm going over to this town and in the Delta, and I said, getting my money that he owes me. You think he's ready to pay me? And he said, yeah, he's ready to pay. He'll pay. And Red Austin was the guy's name. I think he's deceased and been gone a long time. But I went over there, and when I got there, Mr. Austin, he wanted me to play him, get in the game. They were having mountain oysters and chitlins. A big Friday night.
Perfect combination
room,
there.
Right. And so you got your choice. He said, come on back and eat with us. And he owned a big truck stop. He said, just come on back and eat with us. And I got somebody back here. I got a great athlete back here I want you to meet anyway. And it was a man named Lenny Dykstra. And he was a baseball
Lenny
player.
Dykstra of New York Mets.
New York
and
Mets.
Later Philadelphia Phillies fame.
Right, that's who it was. He was a gambler, and he was a high roller. But he had been dropped back down to the minors in Jackson, Mississippi. They had a Mets farm club there.
Okay.
So he got in. It was before casinos, so he got in with this high rolling bunch up there. And he came when Red asked me, he said, come on, get in the game. And then the contractor was there. He got in the game. And I said, oh, no. So I had to stand there. I told him I wasn't getting in it. Well, Dykstra said.
What kind of game are we talking about?
We're talking, they were playing poker.
Poker.
And then he also, in the back of that truck stop, he had a roulette wheel. He had his this dice table, and poker. They were sitting around playing poker. And Mississippi 5-card stud or something, I think. And I didn't know anything about all that stuff. But sat down over there, and Dykstra
You're
come.
starting to sound like a Baptist. Oh, I don't know what that stuff's all about. Never done it. Never thought about doing it.
I learned it the hard way.
Okay.
But anyway, Dykstra come and he said, I'll go you double to nothing on that $2,000. And boy, $2,000, this is about 81, 82 or something like that. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. I worked too hard. It took me a month to cruise that place, and on weekends. And I said, I'm taking my money and going home. But it wasn't long till the contractor had already lost his money that he had on him. And then he asked me, he said, let me have 1,000 of that 2,000. And he said, I'll double it and give you what I win. And so next thing I know, he's asking for the other 1,000. Well, we walked out of there somehow even.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we got to Greenwood, a town on the way where we were going. He lived in another town down around Coala and places like that you never heard of, and Black Hawk and places. But we come through Greenwood, and he said, look, there'll be a big game Saturday night over at the Holiday Inn. That's back when the Holiday Inn. I think he was in the same room that I saw a movie star one time too. And but they would block off 2 rooms, and they had bodyguards at the steps, and you had to have at least $1,000 to play in that game. And we went in, and he played a little bit. This contractor played a little bit. They let him pass because they knew him, but they didn't know me, and he had to vouch for me. So we go in there, and we're in there, and he loses 1,000 again. And then he said, let me have that other 1,000. I'll pay you. I'll double you to nothing, and then I'm going to give you some money too. And he said, I'm going to win. And so I went to the bathroom and I come back out, and he said, "You ready to go?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I've lost it. I lost that $1,000." So he lost $2,000 in probably 30 minutes.
Mm.
So we went down the steps and we left, and that was another time. He always won, but there's 2 times that he'd used my money and he lost. So as things would develop, I worked for a guy from Louisiana. He had a 1,200-acre farm in Koala and Black Hawk area that I was telling you about. And I would kind of manage it. The guy built a $150,000 cabin on it. He called it a cabin.
Really?
But they come up from Denham Springs. He was a big real estate agent, and he traded a lot with 3-for-1 acreage, I think, with Crown Zella back out of Bogalusa. And he would usually get real estate land and let them have timberland. But he had bought this big place up there, Sullivan Realty. He had bought it, and he let me manage it and give me the key to it, and I kept it. And they didn't come up except during hunting season. You wouldn't hardly ever see them. So it was actually almost mine. But I built a fence around that whole 1,000 plus 200 more acres myself. You know, I'd go down there on weekends and I'd work. So I'd been down there, and somehow mysteriously a dozer would appear down there on Friday afternoon, and it was a D6, and the sticker on the side would have a magnetic thing on it. I never checked, but it could have been contractors or somebody. But they wanted me to give them $1,000, so I mean $100 every day, every time I used it, every weekend. So I'd usually, when I'd leave, I'd put $100 in the seat because I was pushing roads, and I made him a couple of lakes, and then we killed all the carp and all the doggone buffalo fish out of a couple of old ponds. Never saw such fish. We'd bring people in that would eat that stuff and fill the back of a pickup full of it. Well, I was coming through town, coming back into this town this guy lived in, and I was in my Jeep, and I had a Renegade Jeep at the time. I think you asked me about that. That's the first place I saw a hair on my chest. But I'd been working all day, and it was getting late in the afternoon, and I decided to go home, but I had to go through that town. And he come out and he flags me down, and he looked scared, and I said, "What the dick is?" He said, "Look, a man from Memphis sent this card sharp down here, and they play this game at the Cotton Bowl, which was a dive in Greenwood, right there along the C&G, Crawling Grunt Railroad track, C&G. And it was right there, and it was some really tough customers that played there. Well, I didn't want to go over there. He didn't much want to go over there, but he said, we backed him with $40,000. So we've got to try to win this money back. The guy they sent over there Friday night lost $30,000. So all they had left was 10. You had to pay $5,000 to get in the game. And he said the guy will not go that they had sent over on Friday. They thought he was trying to cheat them, even though he had lost $30,000. And they was going to kill him. And he thought they were going to kill him. He was scared to death to go. So he told his contractor, I'm not going back over there. He says, we'll just lose this $30,000. It wasn't his money anyway. So I guess he didn't care. So to make it a little bit tougher, this contractor said, listen, I'm scared to go over there. It's going to be trouble. I don't want to go. But if you'll go, I'll give you $1,000, and then I'll give you my winnings. So he's lost twice for me already, but I'm thinking he wins every other time. But when he's playing with some of these high rollers, he wasn't doing so good, evidently. And so I rode on over. He had a big old 3/4-ton truck that he used on planting those pine trees and doing that kind of stuff and deadening the timber. So we go on over there, and when we get there, I immediately recognized one of the guards that had been at that other place a month or two before, and he was at the corner of the building watching. But we went in, and then they had to clear it that I was okay. So I went and sat at the bar where the woman barmaid was. And these guys were at the table playing cards and getting drunker all the time. And money was just flowing. Well, this contractor, if he got them kind of high, they would probably, he could probably slide a ace up his sleeve and take care of them, you know. So he was winning that money back pretty strong. Well, he was down that much, but he won it all back. Well, I was sitting up there with that, drinking Coca-Cola with that woman barkeeper, and she told me, she said, they've already sent word out back to the two guys out back that are guarding it for them, not let anybody out that back door. And so I knew we couldn't get out the back door if we had to go. And I'd already told the contractor, I said, when I see it's time to go, I'm going to come stand behind y'all, and I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to shut you down and say, you get up, contractor. We're going out of here. So I did that. I walked over and got behind him, and I stood behind him, and I said, called his name, and I said, it's time to go. Well, some of these guys are big name people, like they might even own a Volkswagen plant, company. They might have big name, big landowners, and big money people, big farmers. And they was getting drunk, and one of them was over there with his head. He died not long ago. Had his head laying in his plate. They'd feed him to him, you know. They was mountain oystered up over there in chitlins. They must go with that kind of game or something. But I said, let's go. And they said, there was this one guy who was a UPS driver. And I don't know who backed him. Somebody backed him because he was a real good card sharp. And he said, nobody's moving. Nobody's getting out of here. We give him a chance to get the money back. We're going to get our money back. Well, I said, no, we're out of here right now. And the guy said, no. I said, nobody's getting up. And I picked the contractor by the shoulder blade and picked him up. And he was getting a little tipsy himself. And I said, we're out of here, contractor. And, well, they said no. Well, I pulled him on around and started the door. They got up. And then as I went on and I moved fast to that front door, knowing out back, well, they went to the back door and they hollered for those two guys out back, the guards, to come around the sides of the building quick. We were trying to get out the front door. Well, there's a gravel parking lot around there. Well, I threw him kind of, opened his door, and he got in quick. I got in the doggone my side. They shot a couple of times.
Really?
Yeah. But in the meantime, one of my best friends was the dispatcher for the Mississippi Highway Patrol. Well, I used a local phone. We didn't have cell phones then. And I'd called him over there, and I said, Waylon, there's going to be some problems here. I said, can you dispatch some Greenwood police here? And I'd done that about 10 minutes before. So as we went out the front door, I heard these guns go off, and then we jumped in the dang pickup, and the railroad track goes east and west. We're going eastwardly to go back to where he lived. And this one truck made it out, and the cops pulled in and stopped everybody else. But that other one was in high-speed pursuit, as Jackie Gleason would say. I'm in high-speed pursuit. I'm a Texas Ranger.
After you?
No, yeah, they was after me. But I had that old big truck of those contractors. Well, I jumped that railroad track. I was parallel to that railroad track, and they couldn't get over it in their tires in their regular-sized truck. We jumped that doggone thing and went down the other side.
And just like the Dukes.
Well, we didn't go airborne. We went across that dang railroad track. And then we had to go. It goes, you know where the Crystal Club is probably. It keeps going there. The railroad did then. I think that railroad may still be there. There's no train on it. But we went on through there and up to the railroad track, and I jumped across the main railroad track, the ICG Railroad. And we went through an area of town that they couldn't follow us if they got after us. We met up out in the country on Browning Road to count the money. And when we went to count the money, this guy that came down from Memphis said, well, so-and-so in Memphis had give him 20-something thousand. It all comes counting out, and here I am again with maybe $500 clear for risking my life and going through all this mess. And because he was taking this back to Memphis to the guy that had staked him in Memphis. And he had sent him down as this tremendous gambler that couldn't. He would have taken Vegas the way they made him sound. But we made it out of there, and I don't know how, but that was a tough round. I got a lot more stories like that. I may not ever tell another one, but
I don't know if we can handle it.
but
Lenny Dykstra didn't have anything to do with that particular.
no, he just gambled that first time over at Red Austin's club, which it was a truck stop. But in the back, he had all the gambling stuff that casinos finally brought in. But when casinos came in, it shut down that kind of gambling, and people didn't have to go. Well, I mean, some people would do it anyway, but you didn't do it like they did then. They did it for high stakes. There was so much money on that bed in that hotel at night when not Lenny's, but there was plenty of money on that bed, more money than I'd ever seen, and it was really really something to go through all that kind of stuff. And this guy, later on, just at the end of this thing a little bit, I'm watching Channel 3 out of Memphis, and they arrested this guy.
Which guy?
The guy that was backing this card shark.
Okay.
And he's coming down the steps being arrested, and he had 2 kids, and his wife had been murdered in the house. So I may have been dealing with some scrupulous people. I don't know.
I'm just going to go ahead and say, yeah, you were, Jerry Short. You were definitely dealing with some scrupulous people. We've got more to talk about with Jerry Short. Maybe he'll clean up the subject matter after this break, and we'll come back and end on a little bit more positive note as the Toccopola Storyteller time here on today's Y'all Show continues. Don't go anywhere. Don't forget to check out Y'all on our Facebook page, and that's at Y'all Magazine, also y'all.com. Just look for us there and follow us on our Facebook feed. We need all the followers and likes and subscribers out there. And don't forget, we're also on Instagram at Y'all Show, as we are the ultimate guide to the South. We are y'all.com. I'm John Rawl, back here for our final segment on this Toccopola Storytime telling portion of the Y'all Show. Our friend Jerry Short is on with us, and we're talking about everything that happens in Toccopola, USA, and the rest of the South, all the stories out of Jerry Short. And Jerry, after what we just heard in the previous segment of you surviving some, let's say, risky encounters in the black world out there, the card sharks and all that, I don't know where we go from here.
Well, there's not a lot of places you can go and stay upbeat, but that at one time the police, you couldn't sell alcohol at all in Mississippi. Around Oxford, the university was there. You had to go to Holly Springs, across the river anyway, to Johnny's Tin Shack, or you had to go to Mark's to get something. And I know you don't believe I don't drink. I never did drink. Never did. You may believe me, but it's...
I believe you because you and I have had plenty of opportunities to do a little drinking, and frankly, you and I don't normally... I mean, I don't, and I know you don't, but no. I doubt I've ever really been drinking around you very much.
And my daddy owned a liquor store, but I never saw any beer or whiskey at the house. But anyway, we would... I'd go with my friends, and you get in high school, and that's kind of when you started that little drinking deal. And we'd ride over with a friend of mine.
Or is it? When was the first time you ever remember drinking?
The first time I ever touched anything was a junior-senior banquet. And they had some home brew made in the trunk of a car. It looked like muddy water. And you know who played for our junior-senior banquet?
No.
It's somebody you might know. It's the Gentrys. And we already had them booked. And they do Keep On Dancing. Okay. Jerry with... what's his face? Jerry Lawler's buddy. He was his manager for a while. Hart, Jerry Hart, Larry Hart, something Hart. Anyway, he was the lead singer. And anyway, they played for our junior-senior banquet in high school. We'd booked them for about $200, and then they come out with like the number 2 or 3 song in America Keep on dancing. You know that song
No,
probably.
sorry, I missed that one.
You need to play that when you play Little Richard next time.
Okay.
But I've seen it on TV where they have every comedian dancing to Keep on Dancing. It's a video of that. But they were on Dick Clark, and they were all over. They were big. Everybody had what they call them in garage bands. The Gants were from Greenwood. If you've ever heard of them, they opened for some. I think they opened for Paul Revere and the Raiders or whatever they were called. Because I'd quit keeping up with stuff by then. But anyway, on the drinking situation, this friend of mine and a couple more friends, we rode over to Marks, which is on past Batesville, which is a pretty good way to get to Quitman County line. They were, Mississippi was really weird. You had dry county, wet county, dry county, wet county. Most of the Delta was always wet. But we picked up, they had a little thing called a country club malt liquor, little bitty deal. And I'd buy it. And we'd be going down there, and I'd pretend to be drinking. And then I'd throw it out the side of the window, and you could hear it hit the road if you were listening.
What a redneck.
Going thunk, clunk, 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 clunk. But we'd cut back through Sardis Reservoir, and this friend of mine would drink a little bit too much. And as a matter of fact, he died in a car wreck in college. He got killed over at Mississippi State, threw him out, and he didn't even open his coffin. But he would just lose it. When I begged him to let me drive, we was crossing the Tallahatchie River when we'd been over there to get that beer one night. And he wouldn't do it, and he was driving with his teeth in a 56 Chevrolet.
Why would somebody drive with their teeth?
He was drunk, and he was driving wide open, and we were probably doing 100 plus, and I was scared slapped to death because I was sober as a judge, and the other two boys in the back seat was laughing, and I was saying, let me drive, let me drive, let me drive. No, I'm all right, I can handle this. But we cut on through Sardis Reservoir, one of the core lakes. And if you saw anything move, we saw one of the core trucks moving. And we stopped the vehicle because we had time, run out in the woods and hid the six-pack of beer because we was afraid we was going to be sent to Parchman Prison. I mean, that's how serious it was. And it was unbelievable serious, And so we'd have to go back the next day or two and get old hot beer for him. I'd have to go back and pick it up. But I never would. I drank a little bit at Pat O'Brien's in New Orleans when I first went down there when I was young. But that's really more of a, what's that hurricane made out of? Gin?
Beats me.
It's pretty good. It's sweet, and it's got that doggone orange on top, and you get to keep the glass in for $1. So I had a big collection of glasses. But I was dating those Louisiana girls, and they started drinking when they were, they'd start drinking when they were probably in the 10th grade. So it was a different world, Drinking was wide open then. But, maybe that'll lighten it up a little bit. I'll try not to come in with some gangster story next time.
Had you have been in the past and even today an alcoholic, and it's okay, we know a lot of you out there like to drink, and that's fine.
No, it's fine. Don't bother me.
But had you been, Jerry Short, a drinker, do you think you would be here today? Do you think you would have made it? Oh,
you're asking me that question?
Yeah. Do you think you could have made it through some of the encounters you had growing up?
Probably not, because I was aware.
Okay.
And I think being aware carried me a long ways, because when I was in Louisiana, I used to run around a guy on a pipeline when I first left home when I was 18. He had been sentenced to 198 years in Parchman Penitentiary.
For what?
He had been sentenced to 99 for beating up some people, and he was a trustee. And he rode the horse. There was a farm, and it was a pintle farm where you grew your own crops, and it was self-productive, and the government outlawed that. He rode the horse off with his shotgun and escaped. So he got on the pipeline, but they finally gave him a dang, I guess he had a pass where he could go in. So he pipelined, but he wasn't supposed to go out of state. And we were down in Louisiana, and he would get me. He had hair just like Jerry Lee Lewis that we spoke about earlier. and yesterday, I think it was. Is that when we was talking about him?
He could have been.
And I forgot. I knew we talked about Jerry Lee Lewis sometime. But he'd throw that hair up like that, and he'd be down at the other end of a bar, and I'd be drinking my Coke. And he'd say, Jerry, come on, hit me. And he'd be in a fight with all those Cajuns. And I'd have to go down there, and then I'd be in a fight. And then we'd all get kicked out the door together at the same time. And then, I mean, he was something else. I'd like to find him. I know when the hurricane come through, and it blew all that sugarcane down, and it had those women from the Dominion Republic had a sugarcane knife, and they was out there like a machete, cutting sugarcane on the ground, because that's the only way they could get it up then. And we was in a pipeline company pickup, and he was in the back, and he started hollering down there at them, and one started coming running after us in a. She had her machete out.
Gosh.
And she was going to attack, and I was driving the truck. They let me drive a little old skid dozer in the truck. Everybody said I was kissing rear end to get those jobs ahead of.
Probably
That's
so.
I was 18, but I'd driven stuff like that all on the farm and all. So anyway, I didn't take off right away, and that son of a gun reached around the side of the truck and slapped my face. And he said, go, 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 go. And we took off just, I wouldn't say she was fixing to grab the tailgate, but she was getting pretty close. And so let's put a little fun into it with old Moss was his name. And he was a good one.
Glad that you made it out of those days back in Louisiana, and glad that you are still with us here, Jerry Short. We've come to the end of our Toccopola storytelling time with you here today. Thank you for the many, many stories that we're going to have to sit here and think about them long and hard after hearing your survival stories of gambling. My goodness.
Oh, mercy. Now, I didn't gamble. You know, I don't even know how to play old Old Maid.
Okay.
The only thing I could do is I was real good at Monopoly. I was unbeatable at Monopoly.
I see.
Okay.
Jerry Short, thank you very much. We will chat with you again next time. And that will wrap up our Y'all show. Thank y'all for being a part of the show that's all about the South. We will be right back here with an all-new show on Tuesday. Until that time, y'all have a good rest of your day.